A very good afternoon. A very warm welcome to our AmCham luncheon, The Prime Minister Speaks, a meeting, an open forum where matters of interest will be discussed. AmCham operates with the vision of safeguarding individuals' rights to conduct business in an environment free, fair, and contributory to the well-being of fellow human beings. This meeting will give the business community an opportunity to interact and express their ideas with our Honourable Prime Minister, policymakers, and obtain first-hand insight into the future of the private sector and businesses in Sri Lanka. Newsfirst, together with AmCham, the largest independent news network in Sri Lanka, operating with 3 TV channels, 5 radio stations, keeping you informed 24/7 with trilingual websites, mobile apps, and also on-ground operations with a network of 20,000 citizen journalists, Sri Lanka's largest trilingual news operator that truly carries the banner of national unity. And this is a landmark event for AmCham, as it is the first time a Prime Minister will be addressing the membership in its 22-year history. Without further ado, for the opening remarks and to welcome the gathering, please welcome the President of AmCham, Mr. Asanka Ratnayaka.
Our guest speaker this afternoon, Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, Honourable Ranil Wickremesinghe, members of the head table, Honourable Ministers, State Ministers, Deputy Ministers, Members of Parliament, Excellencies, distinguished invitees, ladies and gentlemen. Today is an important day for AmCham, where we host an interactive business luncheon with Honourable Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, who has kindly accepted our invitation to address the AmCham members and guests on his vision for future Sri Lanka. Sir, on behalf of AmCham, I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation despite your extreme busy schedule. We are also privileged to have a number of key ministers, state ministers, deputy ministers from the newly formed unity government and the heads of state departments who have accepted our invitation and present here today. Honourable Prime Minister, who is our keynote speaker, will address us on his vision for Sri Lanka, which will be followed by a very interactive question and answer session. The participants can direct their questions to Honourable Prime Minister or any of the other ministers, state ministers, deputy ministers, MPs, or other senior government officials in the audience. Now it is my duty to formally introduce our guest speaker, Honourable Prime Minister. Honourable Ranil Wickremesinghe, born 24th March 1949, is a Sri Lankan politician who has been the Prime Minister of Sri Lanka since 9th January 2015. He previously served as Prime Minister from 7th May 1993 to 19th August 1994, and from 9th December 2001 to 6th April 2004. A member of the United National Party, he was appointed party leader in November 1994. He's also the leader of the United National Front, having been appointed head of the alliance in October 2009. Honourable Wickremesinghe was educated at Royal College, where he was classmate and a good friend of Anura Bandaranaike, son of then Prime Minister Solomon Bandaranaike, and also Dinesh Gunawardena, son of Socialist leader Philip Gunawardena. Honourable Wickremesinghe entered the Faculty of Law at the University of Ceylon. After graduation, he completed the law exams at Sri Lanka Law College and took oath as an advocate in 1972. In 1994, he married Dr. Maitri Wickremesinghe, a senior lecturer of the Department of English at University of Kelaniya. Without further ado, let me now invite Shamir Razuldeen, Director English News of MBC Networks, who is our moderator, to take the event forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Asanka, the President of AmCham. On the 8th of January this year, there was a change of regime in Sri Lanka. President Maithripala Sirisena was elected to the top job of the country. He promised reform, he promised good governance, he promised change, and most importantly, he promised a 100-day program. 88 days after, are we on the right track? Have we achieved our goals? A very good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shortly after the interim budget was presented by the new government, AmCham featured key players of the country's economy, which included the finance minister himself, Honorable Ravi Karunanayake. At this event, a lot of your questions were answered on business policy in Sri Lanka. Today, we are joined by the man himself, the Prime Minister of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, Honorable Ranil Wickremesinghe. Today on The Prime Minister Speaks, we hope he will clarify your doubts, apprehensions, and also the hopes for the future. Mr. Prime Minister, the floor is yours.
Honorable Ministers, the President of AmCham, members of the Diplomatic Corps, members of the Executive Committee and other office bearers of AmCham, and friends. I must say that I have to depart from my usual policy of not speaking, especially at chambers, because I find that the AmCham is something different. It's a realization that in the world, we have to work with the leading powers. The leading economic powers of the world today and during our lifetime and beyond will be the USA and the Western world. They will lead. They won't do so in the terms of GDP, where China and India will be certainly much bigger, but nevertheless, that's where the market, the money, and the clout will be. They are not in any way trying to downgrade China, but we had a belief that China and maybe the other developing Asia will overtake the rest of the world, and we are safe. China did an immense service to the world during the global economic crisis, where they kept the economies of the developing world going. And they themselves have to slow down now. They themselves have to make some far-reaching changes, and then China will come up again. But still, it's the USA that will lead, and the people who told me so were no one else than some of the leading Chinese whom I used to associate with. India is the other potential player in the region. They will grow. They'll grow faster, and they certainly will be a key player in the Sri Lankan economy. We have to remember, from Pakistan to Indonesia, by 2050 there will be over 2.5 billion people. That is nearly an increase of 1 billion people between now and 2050. Very little will come from Sri Lanka, but they will be from India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, and Indonesia. That's where the growth will be. So this is where we are centered. We should look at the region, we should look at East Asia, and we should look at both the Middle East and East Africa, but remembering that we should have closer ties with the Western economies. And this way, AmCham plays a leading role in bringing local businesses and American businessmen together, bringing those businesses together, and I hope will play a bigger role as we promote direct foreign investment in the country. Now, what is the role of this government? Actually, we have a limited mandate to implement the 100-day program. And that has three aspects to it. Firstly is relief to the people. People have been suffering, and cost of living was one big issue at the elections. What we've done now, by giving better prices for the primary producers, by increasing the wages both of the private government and the private sector, is to pump in more money to the economy, so that by the time Sinhala New Year takes place in the next week or so, that there will be money circular increased. There had been certainly an increase in the retail trade. What we noticed in the last few years was a drop in aggregate demand. And this certainly is a short to a medium term solution, may be very unconventional, but also having its political impact on all of us, that we've been able to deliver what the previous government couldn't do in 5 years. This is also based on the fact that fuel prices came down, and they couldn't give the reduction, they couldn't pass the reduction on to the people, but we have been able to do so. Also mean a loss in revenue and some new ways of raising revenue, which certainly has caused concern among the business community, but it's a once and for all tax that would be imposed. I also must tell you, now we have to find other ways of raising the revenue. Secondly has been corruption. The corruption is another issue which figured in the elections. We started a process of going into corruption. But as I said earlier, the rule of law must prevail. We have to investigate. Then only can we take them before courts. Our investigative skills are limited. This is why we've gone to the Department of Justice, the USA, the Serious Frauds Office, the World Bank STAR, and also to India to give us help in investigating the serious frauds and financial crimes. Some of the key investigations will be yielding results in the next few weeks. I think much more will happen as time goes on and our people gain more experience. The biggest, I would say, the system of unsolicited proposals have been the biggest source of corruption. Unsolicited proposals for everything. And that's one of the, that's how you just bypass tenders, you bypass competitive bidding, you got money and said these answers. So in fact, after we came in, there have been so many unsolicited proposals. On the power sector, I got so many unsolicited proposals on windmills. I said, why doesn't someone give me some unsolicited proposals on tulips? Then at least we could make this look like Amsterdam. But we brought unsolicited proposals to an end, and we'll follow the 1998 guidelines until we formulate a new guideline. But investigations are on track, and there have been other boards of inquiry like the Sri Lankan Airways. If you look at the Sri Lankan Airways, we are wondering, we seem to be subsidizing every passenger who comes into Sri Lanka. Now what do we do next? The third one is democratization, expanding democracy. I must say that there is a air of freedom in the country. We are insisting that people adhere to the rule of law. And the next important event is the amendment to the Constitution. That's gone before the Supreme Court, and the 19th Amendment. Then we have a 20th Amendment on hand, which relates to the electoral system. We have come to basic agreement on we have agreed on the basic principles, but the parties differ on how the details of a mixed proportional system. And the best we thought is to have electoral reform commission that will come up with a suggestion, but hold this election on the basis of the existing system. Now we are a minority government. So we are dependent on the support of the other parties to get these proposals through. We will place it in Parliament and let them decide whether they want to support it or not. If someone opposes it, I feel they'll do so at a great electoral risk to themselves. Then what is happening in Parliament? Well, as a minority government, we are dependent on the opposition. Therefore, the stability of the opposition matters now. Stability of the largest party in Parliament matters whether the government, or in this case, the opposition. Yesterday, when the leader of the opposition indicated they won't call for a vote, he was out, had come out for a meeting of our economic subcommittee, when another group of people who are challenging him called for a vote. So the stability of what happens in the opposition will also important in the short term. But then the people will get the chance of going for elections and choosing a parliament of their choice. What do we do beyond that? Well, we've given thought to it. Some will say, why are you thinking of this when you have not yet won the election? But we do have a second part of our program. We promise people, the young people of this country especially, 1 million jobs in 5 years and doubling of household incomes, creating a strong middle class. Those are the economic aims which should be relevant to you. We have the rule of law, enforcing it further, upholding ethics. But this is our aim. How do we get there? As we have said, we need a highly competitive market economy. There is no other way out. Now we are a party, the UNP, which believes in a competitive economy, in a system which some would call capitalist, but certainly not crony capitalism. And that's one that we have to take out of the system. You can't have development when you have cronies. And the cronies take everyone on. Cronies take everything that's lucrative. Cronies can be in the government, can be in the private sector, but it kills the spirit of competitiveness. So we have to build the spirit of competitiveness. We have to be, in my view, the most competitive economy in South Asia, and also be able to compete with some of our Southeastern neighbors. I would use Singapore as one benchmark, and for agricultural production, Thailand. We cannot be a low-wage economy. The low-wage economies will be Bangladesh, Myanmar. And even in India, the wages will be lower than us. Where do we go? Firstly, people in this country expect a high level of income. I found going around the last 2 years, they say in today's terms, minimum 30,000 to 40,000 rupees. Maybe more. The aspirations to enter the middle class. So we have to get there. That means we have to improve the skills level, we have to improve the technology level, we have to have emphasize more on manufacturing, on the IT and the other service sectors. We cannot run on a concrete bubble. And we can't just be sending people out to serve as domestic housemaids to improve our balance of payments. We have to earn money. We have to go out and compete. And we have to create the million jobs. We have our manpower resources sufficiently trained for the initial period. But as we are doing a survey now, we find it's about very few people, about 14-15%. How many goes on after O-levels and A-levels? 1% of those who sit for the exams go into the university. Then you have a problem of the mismatch between higher education opportunities and employment opportunities. So we've got to change this. That means that everyone has to be a graduate. There can be other diplomas, there can be associate degrees, there may be ways where people start certainly improving while at work, to start with a diploma, associate degree and go up. A far more flexible system. I also think that we have to ensure that every higher education institute or post-school institute is also locked in to a job market mechanism. So you produce people whom the market requires. As we develop the economy, the institution itself will keep changing the courses or upgrading the courses and offering courses for those who are in employment who want to improve themselves. We have a large number of disciplined and skilled people in the Sri Lankan armed forces who are looking for employment outside. I think we should even go for automation and for robotics. After all, our aging process will start by about 2030. That's the period. So we coming into automation and robotics really has no adverse impact on the manpower Sri Lanka. We should look out for more markets. We have to get back the European markets, talk to the USA, talk with India, China, Singapore and others. We need that markets access, keeping in mind that we may have to give certain enterprises a short period to adjust themselves to become more competitive. Subject to that, we have to go in and get the markets. We have to modernize the agriculture. We can't have subsistence agriculture. Our plantation industries can't go on for much longer this way. We also might as well go in for high technology, capital intensive agriculture, upgrade and help the small farmer. So there are large number of problems that are connected to agriculture. Modernization is necessary. While we are looking at manpower training will play a very important role in time to come. The quality and the supply of power. If someone asks me about the tax regime, how many years of tax holidays are we giving, I don't think incentives count anymore. From Greenland to Mongolia down to the South Pacific Islands, you can get anything from 10 years to 15 years tax holidays, but people don't go there. You have to be competitive. Look at the countries where people go and have their manufacturing. So competitiveness and productivity have to play a bigger role. While looking at the new economy that we would create with the service sector, financial markets, large new economic regions, one in Western Province, one in Hambantota, one in Trincomalee, around Kandy, in Jaffna, looking at new tourist development zones. We also got to look at our past sins, the debts that we have incurred. And we have to start repaying them. We have to find ways. The Minister of Finance told me yesterday, so far he has totted up 658 billion rupees of projects completed or started for which no money has been allocated by the previous government. This is not counting the $150 million that have been given to the Sri Lankan Airways. Now I said, why don't you make it over $1 trillion at least? Huh? If you are doing it, you might as well make it. How do we pay that off? We need fast growth, at least 8 to 9%. We want everyone to work together to achieve that. We must have a more efficient public sector, just as much of an efficient private sector, and people who encourage entrepreneurship in this country and value addition. So this is what we are thinking for the future. But to do that, we must all be Sri Lankans. We must all think ourselves as Sri Lankans. We cannot have ethnic or religious differences. That must come to a stop. It's a set of bankrupt policies which the people voted against. There may be those who will try it again, but we should meet it and not be afraid to talk about it. We cannot be dominated by a few people. We have to uphold national unity and a Sri Lankan identity. If we don't do that, we cannot go ahead. So I've spoken to you in brief about what we have inherited, what we are doing, and what we hope to do. There will be many issues in your mind, so I leave it open to the House and see in which way we could clarify the issues that you have raised. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. The Prime Minister spoke. It's your time now. Rules of the game: you can absolutely ask any question from the Prime Minister, absolutely anything related to the business climate in Sri Lanka. Please bear in mind, there is a lot of people here today who are representing the business community, so please ensure that your questions are directed based on the business climate and the future of the economy in Sri Lanka. You could also direct your questions to the ministers who are in attendance today. We have Minister Rauf Hakim, Deputy Minister Harsh De Silva, who is a regular at AmCham events, Minister Arjuna Ranathunga, State Minister Rosi Sinanaika, State Minister of Defence Ruwan Vijayawardena as well. Identify yourself and then shoot your question. Plan B, in the event the National Unity Government fails.
The National Unity Government is for 100 days. And after that we go for elections. The real issue now is the crisis in the opposition, which is also going to have impact. But I think except for one part whose position we don't know, all the others have decided that by end of the month, we should go in for elections. I'm sure with the Sinhala New Year and all on, that we should be able to carry on till end of this month.
Questions to the Prime Minister. Members of the audience, do not be shy. It's a golden opportunity. AmCham has organized an event for you to pose your questions to the Prime Minister. There you go. We have someone? Yes, we do.
My name is Razan Mulafa. This question is not relevant to the event. I want to ask our Honorable Prime Minister when I could see him one-to-one. I've never seen him in real life, and this is my first time in real life.
Mr. Prime Minister, there you go. You have someone saying that it's nice to see you one-to-one. I think you should pose for a photograph with her after the end of the event.
Certainly, any time for a photograph, but we'll be meeting you as we are campaigning for the parliamentary elections.
Any questions, ma'am? You have a question? Hold on for a second.
What can I do for you free of charge before the 100-day ends?
Mr. Prime Minister, I wish she asked me that. She's a lawyer.
Huh?
She's a lawyer.
Okay, she's a lawyer. What can she do for us? Okay. As the Prime Minister, she's asking me. And I must say, get the maximum support for the UNP at the next election.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Honorable Prime Minister, my name is Mansoor. I work for Ceylon Tobacco Company.